On to the Denver Broncos, Colin. Weird-ish situation. So they lose the AFC Championship, and yesterday the Broncos fired their offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Joe Lombardi.
Weird.
And 2 other assistants. Wait, it gets better. No. So all the criticism is for that 4th down call. It's like, bro, Lombardi's not calling the plays. That was all Sean Payton, as we heard from our guest, Wickersham, earlier.
There's a young guy on the staff, I think
Yep,
Davis Webb, that everybody thinks is the next hot shot, and maybe Lombardi was sort of blocking his ascension within the staff. I think Lombardi's got I always thought he had a decent reputation, good reputation. I think sometimes Payton, and it's hard. You don't want to be Aaron Glenn and get rid of everybody, but I don't think it's the worst thing in the world every year to tweak somebody on your staff. I don't think that's terrible. I think there's history that proves. Remember when the Bucs won the title and they brought everybody back the following year? And it's like, I think there is an argument to be made. You should change your roster by 10 to 12%, and you should probably move off a couple of coaches just for freshness, new eyes, new narrative, new point of view. Lombardi will get a job. That's not that. I mean, I don't think this is a. I don't think this speaks to some level of incompetence by Lombardi. No. I think Sean's moving off, and he's got a young guy in the staff that he wants to elevate.
Davis Webb has been interviewing around the league for OC, and I think he got some head coaching, which is a little crazy. He's a young guy. This guy was a backup like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden he's interviewing for jobs. So the best way to keep him on staff is to kind of bounce somebody, which it's a cold world out there, Colin. That is rough. That's a tough way to treat a veteran. Lombardi's like 54 years old. He's been around the league. I would just say, Bo Nix, you thought he had a good season. Lombardi clearly, as the OC, did something in that room. That's a tough one, Sean Payton.
Absolutely not. What is that perspective based on? Sean Payton is fundamentally the architect of the offense. He calls the plays, he designs the schemes, he oversees the entire operation. When you have a head coach with an offensive background who serves as the primary play caller, the offensive coordinator essentially functions as an extension of the head coach, a senior lieutenant executing and supporting his vision. In this context, Sean Payton is simply seeking an upgrade. He's looking for a fresh perspective, perhaps greater collaboration. He may want someone younger, someone who can contribute new ideas, someone he believes can manage day-to-day responsibilities like practice organization more effectively. When Payton is occupied with broader head coaching duties, the offensive coordinator assumes greater responsibility for film study, installation, and other detailed work. Payton may desire a higher level of performance in those areas. There's nothing peculiar about this. It's standard organizational management. Regarding the critique about fourth-quarter decisions or specific play calls, let's be clear. Sean Payton is the play caller. He has taken complete ownership of those decisions. This is not a scenario where a head coach is scapegoating a coordinator by saying, the loss was his fault. That's not the dynamic here. This isn't analogous to a Dan Campbell, Jim Harbaugh, or Nick Sirianni situation, where the coordinator is dismissed to absorb blame. There's no confusion. The accountability rests squarely with Payton, and he isn't deflecting it. However, there can be other, more nuanced factors at play. In those critical moments, Payton relies on his staff for information, game state analysis, and defensive tendency reports. It's possible he felt the quality or timing of that information was suboptimal. Using an analogy, think of a head chef like Gordon Ramsay. He isn't cooking every single dish, but he is responsible for everything that leaves the kitchen. He relies on his sous chefs to prepare components correctly and present them for final approval. If the ingredients are wrong or the presentation is poor, even though the head chef gives the final nod, the foundational work was flawed. Some offensive head coaches operate with a similar collaborative dynamic. While we can't know the exact private conversations, it's plausible Payton reached a point where he was dissatisfied with the collaborative process, the flow of information, or the overall intellectual contribution from that position. This move is more about refining that internal process and partnership than about attributing a single loss or a quarterback's development to one individual. Which leads to the next point. To suggest that Bo Nix's progress is primarily due to the outgoing coordinator is an assumption without basis. Where is that evidence? It's a narrative being invented. Sean Payton's offensive system and his direct involvement are the dominant forces in that development. I will acknowledge that deciphering the chain of responsibility can be tricky with head coaches who specialize on one side of the ball. However, offensive-minded head coaches like Sean Payton, Andy Reid, Sean McVay, and Kyle Shanahan bear overwhelming responsibility, 90% or more, for what happens on their side. They are the principal architects. Yet, collaboration is key. Shanahan and Mike McDaniel were famously a think tank. When you're an established, great coach and you hire a coordinator, you're effectively saying, "What ideas do you have for me? How can we improve?" Extending the chef analogy. A renowned chef who runs a restaurant hires other talented chefs. They may develop a new dessert. While the sous chef created the initial version, the head chef might refine it. Add macadamia nuts, not almonds, elevating the concept. Even if 95% of the work was the sous chef's, the final, polished product that reaches the customer carries the head chef's signature and oversight. It's a synergistic process. Or consider the dynamic from Mad Men. When Peggy claims an idea was hers and Don Draper took the credit, Don's retort is, "You gave me a kernel and I turned it into a commercial." Many creative and strategic partnerships function this way. Payton may have reached a point where he felt the kernels of ideas or the quality of collaboration were no longer sufficient. He desires new energy, different information, and fresh perspectives flowing into his process. Therefore, fixating on a single fourth down call or attributing Bo Nix's development solely to the outgoing coach misses the broader point. Sean Payton remains the one pulling all the strategic strings. This change is about him seeking a more effective, dynamic, and productive partnership to feed his decision-making process. If he didn't believe a change would yield improvement, he'd likely maintain the status quo. The very act of making a move indicates a calculated desire for optimization. Overall, I am completely aligned with this decision, and it makes perfect sense from a football operations standpoint. Attempting to frame it as something more dramatic or blame-oriented is frankly a misreading of the situation. But those are my reflections. I am incredibly eager to hear yours. What do you all think about the Denver Broncos' decision to move on from certain assistant coaches? How do you interpret it? What does it signal to you? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment. Whether you agree with me or disagree with me, let's engage in some discussions. Let's have some spirited debates. But ultimately, let's just enjoy the process. And please consider subscribing. We're building a fantastic community here, and I would absolutely love for you to be part of it. I aim to build something we all feel connected to, something we're genuinely excited to participate in. I believe we're making significant progress toward that goal. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It genuinely assists with visibility and the platform's algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.